One of the most beautiful things here at Oris Sanctuary is the fact that we don't necessarily find ourselves face to face with that trending individual. For a matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. It's engaging with real everyday people, humans driven with a sense of passion that goes beyond the trending topics. It's humans with a mission to share that thing they're excited and passionate about unapologetically. That being said, I would like to introduce to you one of the finest cigar practitioners in my book. Someone whose love for cigars is like music to my ears. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Oris Sanctuary, Steve of London Cigars.
Wow, Steve, welcome to Oris Sanctuary, brother. Here is the man, LCS, London Cigar Smoker. Steve, amongst other things, is a passionate cigar smoker. He's like me, he's a student of the leaf. We are arguably probably the most passionate cigar smokers you would ever meet. It's our passion. We don't get paid for this. We could care less. We just want a good smoke, and we will pay whatever it needs, whatever we need to pay for it. So we're not influenced by money to give some sort of review. We'll tell you what we feel, and we move on because we are surrounded by nothing but friends around the world that smoke good stuff. Yeah. And if we don't like the cigar, we keep it to ourselves. But I could tell you something. We are going to this hour or hour and a half as me and Steve. And if you guys ever get an opportunity, follow him on Instagram. He has one of the greatest cigar blogs, cigar writer. His experience is similar to why and how I started Oris Sanctuary. So it's a passion for him. And it's so nice for the first time to meet someone who is just as equally challenging and passionate about cigars. So, Steve, welcome.
Oh, thanks, man. That's a big up for me. Like I said, I've just been doing, I'm really into my cigars. It's just a hobby that I absolutely love. And it just takes me on so many journeys, and I've had so many amazing things happen. And it started, very young, when I was very, very young. And, I used to go and, I think I used to love the smell of cigar smoke, and who was it? My friend, I used to go around my friends, and his dad used to smoke cigars, and I started to pinch a few. They were cracked, they were really cracked. So they were King Edward cigars. So I thought these were amazing. I thought this was it. So I stole a couple of King Edward cigars, took them home, and I think I went to a park somewhere, and I was quite young at the time, right. And started to smoke it, and I was like, oh my god, amazing. And but years later, did I realise that wasn't even considered really a proper cigar. And wow. I went on from there. So. I think I started logging on to lots. The web was kind of coming out into probably early 2000s. I think I was looking onto the web and started coming across UK based cigar forums. So I think there was one called UK Cigar Forum. Went on there, I started talking about my King Edward cigars, and everyone's like, "What?" And at that point, I realised that there's something else. People were telling me about the Cuban cigars to try out. So I think I then went and did a bit of research, and I got a book. There was a book by. I can't remember the guy's name. I think there was a guy called Simon Chase who was involved in the writing of the book, and I think there's another guy called Anwar, and they did a book called they wrote a book called The Cigar Companion.
Correct.
And it really I think it was done in 1989 or something like that. So it's quite old at the time. But inside, I sort of started to open the book, and I was I was fascinated. I was just like, wow, there's all this information. And what they had, first of all, the thing I remember the most is that they had a reference to the Davidoff London cigar store. And I was like, oh, wow, what's that? I want to go there. I have no idea what it is. So I had that in my mind. That was the first thing. And then the second thing I saw was that they had an A to Z directory of cigars. Now, little did I know that, fast forward, 20 years later, I'd end up using that as the thing that kicked me off in doing a blog and really discovering cigars. I never knew, but I did. You know, when I got my first job in London, you know, I went straight to the Davidoff cigar store. I was nervous as, you know, I was really bloody nervous. I felt like I didn't know. It looked like I'm wearing a suit today because you know, I like to dress smart and stuff, but it was overwhelming. You know, just walking into that shop, I was like, what am I doing in there? I saw the pipes and everything. As soon as I walked in, I couldn't have got a more nicer welcome. I didn't meet the Sahakins at that point. And I have since, but they really helped me pick a cigar worth trying. You know, so that was when I tried the. I was trying to find out the other day what it was, and I think it was the Davidoff Signature Number 2. I think it was like a. I don't know if it was a limited edition. I can't really remember, but I just remember being given this cigar when I walked into the cigar humidor, and I got home and I was like, "This is gold." And I think I smoked it indoors as well. And the parents were downstairs, and they're like, I was hoping they couldn't smell anything, but they might smell a whole lot. And I smoked this cigar and I loved it. I completely understood at that point that the King Edward was nothing compared to, you know, this Davidoff cigar. But and then it sort of stopped, you know, like for years I just sort of, you know, like I was just buying a few cigars now and again online, and you know, and I was just getting the cheapest ones I could get, and it was the Quorum. I think they're called the Quorum cigar, and they're really bad, really not the best cigar I've ever smoked, really. And I started to buy those, and it was just affordable cigars that I could do. But fast forward, you know, like a lot of years, COVID happened. And when COVID happened, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I'm working full time, you know. I needed a hobby. I needed something to kind of get my, you know, get through this. So it was at that point I looked at that book. I rebought the book because I didn't have it on me, but I rebought the Cigar Companion on Amazon. And logged on, grabbed the book, got it again. Called the Davidoff store. I was like, tick, done that. and then I said to myself, right, maybe I should smoke one of every single cigar from that 8 cigar brands, right? so I didn't think, how much is this going to cost? That wasn't the first thing that came to mind. It cost me a fortune. But I thought, right, let's go from A to Z, you know, and. I can tell you, loads about that.
it's interesting, right? Because a few weeks ago, you and I simultaneously encountered something spectacular, right? Out of the Alfred Dunhill establishment on Davis Street, Mayfair, just round the corner from Sutter's, you know. Through a very good friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, we just talked about him, by the name of Reese Davis Hamilton. So for those of you listening, just a little bit about Reese. He's one of the most arguably knowledgeable cigar connoisseur any one of us would ever encounter if you are in London. Just like Steve, he is just passionate. But he goes a little bit further. He worked at Davidoff. At one point, he traveled to Havana, I believe, for an annual educational trip with Hunters and Franco. If you know anything about Hunters and Franco, they are a big, phenomenal force. They've been around since Winston Churchill, before Winston Churchill, the greatest, biggest supplier of Cuban and the finest cigars on the planet in England, right? You don't, when you say Hunters and Francos, I mean, if you're in the cigar world, you know who they are. You know, you're not gonna have problems when you smoke their cigars. So he went on that trip, and when he got back from that trip, of course, he was one of the most wanted because of his knowledge, just like Steve, and you can see how passionate he is, just like myself. When he brings cigars around us, we don't know where to stop. We flow into different orbit. But there was a cigar, a particular cigar. I'm talking about that. Reese introduced. You were part of that team of people who tasted that cigar. And of course, I smoked it. I got one right here, by the way, and it's a 56-year-old Temple Hall Dunhill Selection number 133 Jamaica. Now we're talking length side 5 centimeter. This is out the box, right? Petit Corona, strength, medium, origin, Jamaica. Now, so I think you also you probably know about this because you wrote about it in one of your blogs regarding Temple Hall. It was a cigar company out in Jamaica. I think they were on the market. I think they were before that in 1969, and they were acquired later by the American Cigar Company. Of course, the Temple is no longer there in Jamaica. A friend of mine from Jamaica actually did a Google map on the farm where the factory was. Another cigar smoker from out of Jamaica, a friend of mine, really, we actually go to Dunhill together, and he says that place doesn't exist anymore. But maybe you could take us into your experience with this, because you wrote about it.
Yeah, and well, yeah, like I've been smoking a lot of like new cigars, like a lot of new cigars, and when I went to Alfred Dunhill, interestingly, like the whole story of me going into there. So years ago, there was a guy called Nick Wing.
Okay.
And it was in 2012 or 2010. He introduced this concept, or he started to do some cigar walks in London, Cuban cigar walks in London.
Wow.
And he I think it was on Cities of Sound. I remember the name of the website he set up, and he did a walking tour of all the cigar stores in London, and this is where I'd first heard of Alfred Dunhill.
Yeah.
So that was the first stop. I think that was the first stop on the tour. I think we all met in Mayfair on a Saturday morning.
Wow.
A few gentlemen, we was all sort of dressed up. I was dressed up smart as well, so I was like,
nice.
Not sure what...
As we do.
met at the Churchill and Roosevelt statue,
Wow.
both sat on a bench, and that was the starting point of this tour. And Nick was just an amazing guy, a really charismatic man, and he really, you could feel like a newbie and feel okay. The way he sort of talked to you and introduced you to the cigar scene was amazing. But long story short, he sort of started to take us around all the sort of cigar stores in London. So the first stop being Alfred Dunhill. So we went in there. I'd never really, I think this was before I had my first, was it my first? I can't remember the timeline of it, but I think I'd been to Davidoff that once, but I'd never really understood that there was this whole cigar scene in London with all these stores there. And I think it happened, I think it was after the smoking ban as well, which was in around 2007. Anyway, went into Alfred Dunhill, and that's when we went into that building, and he sort of took us downstairs, and we went in and saw all the amazing cigars. Didn't obviously, the Temple Hall, I didn't even know about that until, very recently. But that was the first time I'd sort of gone into that store, and just that appreciation for, being British, and, you just felt very, very British when you walked into that store, because it's the gentleman's, haven, And I think now they don't really want to sort of associate themselves with cigars. It's not got the best reputation, but they were, they were a big place to go and get that and smoke and enjoy those cigars. So we went on that tour, and I found out actually that Reese went on that tour as well, and Reese went on it, like, I don't know when we did it. We went on the same tour together, but he was really inspired by this Nick Wing as well, so we did that, and that we ended up going to Davidoff as well, and we met the Sahakians there. But yeah, going back to Alfred Dunhill, it was so lovely. Years later, I remember Nick Wing actually created a magazine called the UK Cigar Scene magazine. It was in a PDF online, and he did some wicked interviews, online with the Sahakians, with everyone. And I remember seeing Reese was featured in this magazine, and he was talking about that Cuban cigar walk, and I was like, oh my God, I've got to meet this guy, because he's been inspired by it, but he knows so much more than me. He really is a fascinating guy when you meet Reese. But so it was lovely, through my cigar journey, as I've got, I've been blogging, for a couple of years now. I got in touch with Reese, or me and Reese got in touch at some point, and I found out he's actually now the manager in that store, and I'm like, this is crazy, because we both went in there on this tour years ago, just as, just like cigar newbies, and he's running it, and I'm running this blog where I'm kind of, like getting completely obsessed with it. Anyway, so he invited me along to one of their cigar events, because I've been, I can tell you all about that, but I've been going to lots of different cigar events in London and beyond. And that's when he introduced us to the Temple cigar. Now, this blew my mind, because like I'd never smoked a cigar that was like 50 years old, and
50, let alone 56 years old, 62 at one point. This
crazy. My mind was blown just at the fact that we were smoking a cigar of that, that of that time, and the thing that just fascinated me was how on earth do you keep that preserved? The quality of it, because it was an amazing cigar when we smoked it. It was just wonderful, and I think he was explaining that it was in, like they've been in the distribution factory, in Walthamstow, I think it was. He was talking about where they're stored, but and you just appreciate when you smoke that cigar, you appreciate the effort that goes into making those cigars, from when it's from the leaf to all the way through, and then being looked after for like 60 or so years, and then being given out to, it felt like a real honour to smoke cigar, and we didn't know that was going to be the case. I didn't know it was Temple Hall race. I'm not sure how many there are now. Reese would be the person to speak to about
yes.
it. Oh,
But I would recommend whoever goes to London, they must stop by Alfred Dunhill, and let it be known we're not sponsored by them. We're cigar enthusiasts. I've always said that to people. We work for no one. We're just passionate about it, and we just like to lead people, especially. You and I have a lot of newbies who want to learn and know about cigars. I always try to take them to the basic. I always try to take them, like you, to where it all started from. And so the likes of Alfred Dunhill, and there are many incredible other cigar places. But for those of us who live in central London, and the company, as you can see, we keep. I mean, we always every year go to the Cigar Smoker Award,
yeah.
which I won in 2022. So
yeah, I was there.
You were there, yeah.
So I've been wanting to go there for years.
Yeah.
Just never had the opportunity or the money, to go along, and went along, and that was the night that you won the big awards. So I was like, amazing.
But what's interesting? Everyone there I knew. For every single human being we've smoked, we've been in different cigar tastings and cigar journeys, cigar history. We've traveled and cigar moments, and we're passionate. It's like a cigar heads, right? And which was interesting, when this particular cigar that you and I are talking about, Temple, the Alfred Dunhill, we're talking almost 62 years. Did you feel the same thing I felt, where I felt like this was a few weeks back when I smoked one, I felt the effect, the taste, the journey for almost a week.
Yeah, well, even now, I just cannot believe, that appreciation and that level of love and care that's taken to make sure that it gets into the consumer's hand, and I bet they never imagined, the people that were involved in that, I can't imagine they were foreseeing that far into the future that people like us would be then smoking them at that point, and so for me, it just made me really appreciate the cigar culture and the history that's there, and it just felt like a real honour to smoke such a cigar. So for me, and to be honest, when I smoked it that night, I found it really hard when I'm at cigar events to really sit and appreciate the cigar when there's so many people chatting and stuff. I kind of wanted a second one, just so I could take it back and just really sit with it for a moment. Because I was with cigars, there's so much amazing conversation, but sometimes I find it a challenge trying to balance the two, if I'm really honest, like that, but I love both of those cigar world, but it just felt, like when I went back and then I tried to write about it, I started to just do a bit of research around it, and it was just incredible. And I don't even know now, like, if Jamaica is still making cigars. I remember speaking to someone recently who saw a post, and they said, "Oh, we've been trying to get access to some of those cigars, and I think they've got some more now in stock." And but it was just that love, and that care, and that's the thing that I'm really appreciating more and more. Like when recently I've been going to a lot of, so in lockdown I was smoking cigars, A to Z of cigars, and I went through 50. What was it? Hang on, I got the stats here. I wrote it down earlier. I think it was there were 71 cigar brands in that book. So I wanted to smoke one cigar from each of those brands. I could only actually get access to 43 of them because the book was so old. They didn't actually have those cigars. Not all the cigars are available, and I was just like, wow, I know nothing about why cigars don't still exist now. Is it because they're not good, or do they run out of money? The companies that are behind them, I'm not sure. But I smoked 43 of those different cigar brands, through that time, and that's where I really learned. I was just learning about. Yeah, I think the first cigar was the Arturo Frenente, and I can never pronounce them. The Irish Shark. Now
you say it very well, better than me.
I can never. My accent comes out when I try and pronounce the cigar name, but it really, I started to really, really appreciate and start learning about the history of each cigar as I was blogging about them, because I was doing a load of research about them and using the book to help guide me in that. And it was at that point you realise how many people are involved in making these things. And there's a lot of family values. You find that a lot of Cuban cigar places or non-Cuban cigar places, there's family relationships there. So starts the business and then they bring their whole family into it, and then they have a whole community of people that are making cigars, and it blows my mind. Like for me, my next goal is to go to the Cubas and the Nicaraguas, and to go and visit those places, because I'm like, this is the Mecca. This is like, it feels like my life's been leading to that moment, And I actually, funny enough, I had Cuba booked, and then COVID happened and my flight. And I was like, it wasn't meant to be, and actually it was the right timing, because I hadn't done this exercise where I smoked all these different cigars, and I really learned like what I really liked and what I didn't, and I was just trying to rate them really, and and from that I just started to post it, and I didn't think I'd be able to keep it up. Blogging is really hard, it's difficult, and each one I do is like an essay for me. I find it's like, because I'm doing a lot of research behind it, and all that kind of stuff. And but it just makes me appreciate what I'm smoking. And you don't know that when you walk into the shop and you buy it, you pick it up, you just don't appreciate that. But the more you get involved in the cigar, the more you smoke, the more you speak to people, you realise that there's something there. There's a heart there, isn't it? A heart. I don't know where I'm going with that, but
no, I get it.
Really, really strong, and then that comes through, and when you meet people, and then you share the experience of cigars and what you've smoked, it's incredible,
Yeah. Who has to be your favorite mentor or role model in the cigar world? I know you mentioned quite a few, but who is the one you look up to, or that person that's influenced you to want to understand cigar?
Yeah, so it's got to be Nick Wing is the name of mine, because he just made, I don't know, like there's a vision of what a cigar smoker is like. I'm probably stereotypically dressed as a typical cigar smoker, and I think that's the vision, of what it's portrayed as, but it's more than that. It's more than. And he made cigars for me really accessible. Like the way he spoke about cigars, the way he was so passionate, the way he was just, like I just remember he had this big beard, and he was a crazy guy, and he took us on all these journeys, and just seeing him and just his love for it. And I think, like when we went on that Cuban cigar walk, we met Edward Sahakian, and the Sahakians are absolute gentlemen, And I look to them as well. Like I think they are such inspiring people in terms of the way they present themselves, the way that they are. Like they might have a lot of money, but they're the head of their company, but they are the most human. There's something really human about them, where they will talk to anyone, and they can. And I got that when I met Carlito Frenente as well. I met him recently, and again, they're the CEOs of these huge companies and organisations. And you don't normally meet these people, but they are so passionate, and they're so normal, and so. And for me, it was just meeting those people, and I was just like, yeah, you don't have to be someone in a bloody suit, which I'm wearing. You can be anyone, and you can just really enjoy it. And it's about that love. It's an emotional thing. I've been meeting a lot of people, but the passion that comes through when they talk about cigars. I've joined loads of online cigar herfs, and the guy that does the what's it called? Cigar of light up cigars, light up.
Yeah, light them up.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and they do a
Oh man.
yearly event, and it's emotional. You see,
Yeah, it's a journey.
yeah,
Yeah. I
so
was I was at one of his shows.
yeah,
Yeah, I was at one of his shows, and let me tell you something. He is such an intelligent guy. If you guys ever get an opportunity, check out Light 'Em Up. Light 'Em Up. We will definitely. Um, I've been on the and again, you get to understand that the world of cigars, we don't deal with complicated. We don't deal with complications in politics. We don't have time for that. And there's no room for that because each time you light a cigar, it takes you on a journey. Not only does it take you on a journey, you need a certain level of focusedness, of meditation to understand it, or you would choke. It's impossible. It's a very humbling experience, you know, fire and ash, dust to dust. I mean, it's like a physical, psychological life and death just running through, because you get to, you know, they talk about the minds and cigars and the inventions, and they take it all the way back to someone, you know, I remember someone saying if Christopher Columbus had smoked a cigar, he wouldn't have done most of this stuff he done, bless him, you know. You know what I mean? You know, more power to him. I was never around at that time, but people always say when the Indians gave him tobacco leaf, he looked at it and he was like, what is this? And tossed it to the side. Little did he know that's how you heal. You know, you like that leaf, you know, that was that thing. And you know, you talk about the Sahakins and all these people. I've been very fortunate, and you something you said. People don't realize the amount of hands that goes into make a cigar. When I was speaking to Juan Martinez from Hoya de Nicaragua Cigars, I remember him telling me, Oris, the cigar goes through 300 hands to make. That's mind blowing, right? From start to finish. And that just took me on to a whole other level psychologically. I was like, wow. And the amount of emotions that goes into making cigars. But I want to let me ask you something. Did you ever thought that time in your childhood when you stole that cigar? Could you foresee this, like this journey of yours? No.
Never. And even when I did, you know, like went into the Davidoff store again, I never knew that I'd be going back there and wanting to try it out. Or when I went on that Cuban cigar walk, I never knew the impact that would have. You know, one of the biggest impacts really is around my confidence, because, you know, like I found it quite an unnerving thing to go to this event and go to all the cigar lounges, and it's a common theme I have. Every time I go to all these different cigar venues and cigar events, and I have huge anxiety building up, and I just keep sitting with that emotion when I'm going to, you know, like a new cigar venue or somewhere, and I push through it, and every time I'm like, there's such a reward at the end. I've had such an amazing experience. It's like, you know, like even today I was like, oh God, I'm dreading it, you know, like, because just having an interview, I'm just like, oh God, I'm not used to that. But I just thought, just go with it, because every time you sort of just sit with it, you know, and so that really has been the biggest thing that I never sort of I'd expect that cigars would give me. Bloody hell, you know, and actually that confidence has helped in my, like when I'm working in the workplace with my family and friends and everything like that. There's a self-confidence that I've built up just through cigar smoking, which is crazy, you know, because you do get to meet so many different people, and you're sort of, you know, when you go in the cigar lounge, you just don't know who you're going to be with, and you meet some fascinating people that you would never ever meet, you know. And for me, that I would never have anticipated that when I went in on that Cuban cigar walk, or when I looked in that book, that cigar companion book. It was so inspiring and influential to me. I just didn't realize it, you know. And when I then sort of I've always been like, well, what's my hobby? During lockdown, that's when it sort of went into overdrive. I was just like, I want to write about this. And I'm not the best writer. I find it really hard writing actually. But it just started to resonate with people. And online, I've been meeting so many amazing people online just through this blog, and that has been inspiring and influenced me and it keeps me going. I get so many people contact me now from that website that are reading it. I feel really amazed that I feel really appreciative that people will do that, and then they tell me somewhere to try out or something, and I'm just always learning something new, and so I'd never. If going back to the question, I would never have thought that would have been the case when I stole that King Edward cigar. That makes me sound like such a pike.
Man, at least I tell you what. After this, King Edwards would definitely go up because I'm gonna tell you a story. Right, I was so desperate. One time. I was traveling and my suitcase didn't show up. Right, and let me tell you, the closest to the cigars I got was King Edward. So I'm not gonna laugh at it. I'm not gonna. I'll confess. Listen, and the cigars that was missing, that was coming was, when you arrive at a destination, your suitcase doesn't show up, but you got your mini humidor with all your juicy cigars. Man, I went back into the duty free. The guy was like, "Oh, we have this." I said, "All of those things you just pointed out, I have them. I'll take the King Edwards." And you should see the guy's face. He was like, he had no idea that I had, the Patagas, the Queen. But I needed something to smoke with a cup of coffee, just to chill.
In the hour of need.
Yeah, in the hour of need, man. You know how it is. And this brings me to this, Can you share with me, talking about cigar moments in life, right? Can you share with me your favorite cigar moment? What particular event or personal experience? I think you've touched on it, but there has to be that one moment where you were just like that cigar, the region became a region. Not only is your favorite, but a region that you kind of explore, sort of.
Oh, do you mean in terms of favorite cigar?
Yeah. Share with us your favorite cigar moment.
Yeah, do you know what? I've got quite a lot, and I feel that I've not yet had the best one. I keep thinking there's going to be more. I hope. There's been some special moments. I think the first one was the Cuban cigar walk, of course. But when we went into JJ Fox for the first time in that session, and James Fox is a store in London, the oldest. Yeah, and it's the oldest cigar store in London, and it's a must-go-to place. If you don't know anything about cigars, just go there. That is 100% the place you need to go, first of all. I can't recommend it enough. And they've got a cigar museum downstairs, yes. And I think they've got loads of artifacts from Winston Churchill's
room, correct.
He's got the little seat there, which
as much as we talked about Alfred Dunhill, there's Sutters, there's JJ Fox, and there's another one down the road, just by Berry's.
Yes. The Havana Cigar Exchange. They're not there now, though.
They're not there anymore. That place was a Saturday morning cigar smoke for me and a certain friends of mine. Actually, one of my best friends in the cigar world, who introduced me to my wife. We used to meet there every Saturday morning, and it was one of those Saturday morning smoke. He introduced me to my wife. You know what I mean? We were sitting there with smoke, and we were allowed to bring in our own whiskey. Remember, you're allowed to bring in your own stuff. So each week, one of us would bring in a bottle of something to share with, and that's another thing in the cigar community. We share. There's a lot of sharing going on. If you love someone so much, you would actually literally give them your best cigars, or give them a drum of a certain whiskey that's in the 40 to 45 years. When you start doing that with certain people in our circle, it's a lot of love. It's like blood, right? It's like, wow. So it's memories like that at JJ Fox, the Winston Churchill room downstairs, and it's
And just going in there, like when I went in there, we went in and on this Cuban cigar walk, and I don't know if you know of him, but there's a Scottish comedian called Billy Connolly.
I know, we all know Billy.
He was just in there.
Crazy guy. Who doesn't know Billy?
Because I've been mentioning him a lot lately, and I'm does the
He's
younger
funny.
generation know? I'm not sure, but he is amazing. And he was just in there, and we were with him for 2.5 hours, and he was telling us all these amazing stories about cigars, and that was the first Cuban bloody cigar walk that I did, and I was just like, this is amazing. That was an amazing first experience in JJ Fox, and so that was the first one. But again, like recently, so through the cigar blog, I've been chatting more to the Americans, actually, the American folk, and so a lot of people message me on my social media and all that kind of stuff, and I've been in touch with Aaron Sigmund. So he's the guy that's written this amazing book called The Impossible Book of Cigars. It's really it's
I know Aaron. Hi, Aaron.
I've been in touch with him, and he wrote the Playboy Book of Cigars, which I managed to get a copy of somewhere. I think I found online, and then he recently released, I think it was last year. He's done a history. He's done the whole history of Arturo Frenentes.
Arturo, yes.
And he came over with Carlito.
Correct.
He launched the book in the UK last year. Now that was an
They
amazing...
had an event on Piccadilly. I was invited to that event, and he was supposed to be there. I was, of course, out the country in Senegal, so I couldn't make it to that event. But actually, Aaron actually invited me to that event.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
and just because I really appreciate him, because he's the book writer. He's been writing about books about cigars for a long time, and I think when I was reading that Cigar Companion, I was like, oh, I really appreciate all these authors of people that are trying to document, stuff. And but I got an invite to that, and it was a 2-part event. So the first one was in, I cannot pronounce the name, a bookshop in Mayfair. It was Mazin. I can't.
Oh my God. Yeah. I know. I think because of the M and ends with them like a mademoiselle type of. Yeah. Okay.
That's the one. So we started off in there, and we were allowed to have drinks, obviously, I think, in there. And that was when I walked in, and Carlito was there, and the Sahakians were there, and just the big names of the cigar industry were there. And I just was like, I cannot believe that this blog has got me into this position. And do you know what? Everyone was just so friendly and kind, and I did not feel like an outcast in there. I felt so welcome. And, I was just chatting to loads of people, and I met people that I'd followed myself online, and I've been chatting online, and I felt real community value in the most amazing venue, right? So the venue was amazing itself. And then we went to JJ Fox, and they did an interview, and and it was one of those magic moments. I was just like, and I was returning back to JJ Fox to hear all that, where I smoked a cigar with Billy Connolly years ago, and so those were some, and I've had many, many special moments in different cigar lounges across the UK now, because I've sort of gone out, I'm moving outside of London, and I'm going to try out some other places, and so those are the moments that sort of stick in my mind. And there was a lovely moment where I saw Edward Sahakian, and he's like an amazing gentleman, and he was taking a photo of Carlito and Aaron, and I love that moment. That's one of my favourite pictures. I'll have to share it with you, but it's a lovely moment because you sort of see the respect that the industry have with each other, because they could be seen, maybe, are they competitors? I'm not sure, but there is a, on the surface level, there's that love, it's a business, I get, but there's something there which you just saw, and I just thought it was a lovely moment, in the cigar world,